Good morning all. Thank you very much for joining us this morning at the Licensing Subcommittee meeting of the Vale of Glamorgan Council on Friday the 20th of June 2025. While members come on screen, let me introduce myself. I'm Liz Whitaker. I'm a Democratic Services Officer for the Vale of Glamorgan Council. I'm joined today by the following members of the subcommittee: Councillor Norman, Councillor Hennessy and Councillor Bruce. By way of housekeeping and general introduction to the meeting, may I remind everyone present that the meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and that this recording will be archived for future viewing. If a participant wishes to speak, can they please raise their hand using the raise hand function? And as we've discussed already, to come in and speak on screen, you need to select the request to speak button. When invited to address by the chair, please ensure that your microphone and camera is on to ensure that you can be seen and heard when actively participating. Please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of the recording. We're also joined today by Richard Price from the Council's Legal Department and by Kirsty Evans, the officer from the Council's Licensing Department. We have an additional licensing officer in attendance, but observing only. Also in attendance is the applicant for the premises licence, Mrs. Luani, and the applicant's representative, Mr. Martin Jones of Hugh James Solicitors. We also have Claire Dewhurst, a representative of South Wales Police, in attendance to make the police's police's representations. As the first item on the agenda, committee will need to appoint a chair for the duration of this meeting. Can I ask subcommittee members for nominations, please? Councillor Bruce, I think you're trying to make a nomination, but we can't hear you very well. You're very quiet.
Can I nominate William Hennessy, please?
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? No further nominations. So Councillor Hennessy is duly elected as chair of this meeting. I can briefly outline the procedure for the meeting, Chair, if you'd like me to.
Yeah, yes, please. I'd be quite happy for you to do that.
Okay, lovely. So after the chair has been appointed, we will ask for declarations of interest as step 3. Then we will have step 4, which is the licensing officer introducing the application and the report. Step 5 will be the chair will invite the applicant or their representative to present their case. And step 6 would be the presentation from the responsible authority, in this case the police. We have our representative on the call. Step 7, interested parties would be able to speak at that point. We don't have any interested parties who've indicated they want to speak in this case. Step 9 would be the applicant's closing statement, either from the applicant or their representative. Step 10 would be points of clarification. Step 10 would be points of clarification, and that after which step 11 would be the subcommittee can retire to deliberate in private, accompanied by the legal officer and committee clerk. I hope that's clear, Chair. If you need to refer back to it at any point, myself and the legal officer are here to assist. Thank you.
No, I'm quite happy. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I pass over to you, Chair, in terms of the rest of the agenda from declarations of interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. My name is Councillor William Hennessy. I will be chairing this meeting this morning. Do we have any declarations of interests, please? Is that a no?
None received to Democratic either, Chair.
Okay. If possible, can I have the other 2 members come on screen, please? Okay. Agenda item 3 is Licensing Act 2003, granting of premises license to the Greek Island 202 Halton Road, Barry, CF 63 4HQ.
Kirsty's online to be able to present the report here, Chair.
Okay, Kirsty, can I have you come on screen, please, and do your report?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so this report is for the subcommittee to consider and determine a new premises licence application under Section 16 of the Licensing Act for Greek Islands, which is at 202 Halton Road, Barry. So the licensing authority received an application for this grant of a new premises licence, which was submitted by Greek Islands Limited. The application itself can be found in Appendix A of your report, and a plan of the premises has been circulated to members as additional information. The applicant describes the premises as a Greek restaurant, and it has around 8 tables inside with 4 chairs each. The application itself requests the sale of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises Monday to Sunday, 1600 to 2300 hours. However, since the publication of the report, the applicant has confirmed that they wish to remove the request for off sales and reduce the requested alcohol timings to finish at 22:30 hours. So confirmation of this request has been sent to members prior to the meeting. So therefore, the subcommittee are today considering the sale of alcohol for consumption on the premises only from Monday to Sunday from 1600 to 22:30 hours. The additional conditions proposed by the applicant for the promotion of the licensing objectives can be found in Section M of the application, detailed in Appendix A. However, since the publication of the report, the applicant has submitted some more detailed and enforceable proposed conditions, which have also been circulated to members and the police prior to this meeting. So the application itself was subject to a 28-day consultation period, where one representation was received, and this was from South Wales Police, who are a responsible authority. The representation itself is detailed in Appendix B of your report. The police have also submitted some additional information, which includes a statement from Police Licensing Officer Claire Dewhurst, a list of reported incidents in Halton Road, an email from a probation officer, and an incident log which relates to an offence that took place on the premises. So all of that additional information has been circulated to members and the applicant prior to the hearing today. No other representations were received during the consultation period, so it's just that to consider today. As relevant representations have been received, the licensing subcommittee is asked to determine the application having regard to the council's statement of licensing policy, the section 182 guidance, the application itself and the additional information, and any representations submitted. Thank you, Chair. That's it from me.
Thank you, Kirsty. Do any of the members wish to query anything with Kirsty, please? Jane or Gillian?
No, nothing, thank you.
Nothing from me, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Kirsty, very much. I would like to ask the applicant or their representative to come on screen now, please, if that is okay. Good afternoon. Good morning, Mr. Jones. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Well, Ms. Whittaker kindly introduced me. I'm Martin Jones. I'm a solicitor with Hugh James in Cardiff. We represent Greek Island Limited. I'm here today with Ms. Lydia Luani. She's bringing the application effectively today. Let me tell you a little bit about the background, if I may, and make one or two little corrections, I think, in terms of the basis on which the application is put. They're reasonably limited ones. So the applicant is Greek Islands Limited. That's a company which is owned by Arben Saliaj, who is Lydia Luani's father. So this is a family business, a family company, The owner is Mr. Saliage. The proposed DPS, if the application succeeds, is Ms. Luani, and she's the person who initially completed the application this time around. She's also the wife of Mr. Luani, who's the chef, and at a later point will address the issues which are relevant so far as he's concerned. Initially, Ms. Luani completed the application herself. She says candidly, I met with her this morning before the hearing, she says candidly that she hadn't anticipated that this would attract objection. She says, well, perhaps I was a bit naive about that, but she hadn't appreciated the objection that it might attract from the police. We now do understand that. And therefore, the application as originally drafted was perhaps a little bit homespun. And having taken advice from one of my colleagues, Nicola Jordan, and in particular having heard representations from Miss Dewhurst and having had some help from Miss Evans, there's been some changes. So the changes that you've been told about by Miss Evans are these: no off sales, so the off sales element just removed. Within the original application, there was a application for music, but without understanding where the law sits in relation to the possibility of providing entertainment as it stands without licensing. So no music is needed. The hours initially, as you've heard, 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. didn't allow drinking time. So we've taken those back, 4 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. to allow for drinking up time prior to premises close at 11 p.m. And then really a rather subtle change. You've heard about the seating plan from Ms. Evans just now, and you've got the seating plan at page 25. So if you have page 25 on your screens, as I do, you'll see on that 8 tables within a relatively small restaurant area. That got changed. It got changed in March, actually. So there are now 7 tables, but they're a bit bigger. There are 7 tables which would be capable of taking 6 seats each. That's the table size. But if you did that, they would be too cramped. So effectively, we have 7 tables. At the moment, there's 4 seats around each of them. The ambition would be to have at most 34 covers around those tables. So a 34 cover restaurant. In terms of what it does, you'll have some sense of that, I think, from the papers. It's a Greek restaurant. It's been open for about a year. Greek restaurant serving food such as gyros, wraps, moussaka, things of that nature. There's a ground floor restaurant area. You can see from the plan the kitchen's behind the till, the entrance. There's a downstairs basement that's not in the licensable area. That's for storing food, etc. It's a family restaurant, as I've mentioned. The staffing is effectively Mr. Luani as the cook. So he's involved in cooking things in the kitchen. He's the person with the Greek background and therefore the ability to cook this particular kind of food. They've taken substantial borrowing in order to obtain the restaurant to open it, take the lease. I'll mention that because it's relevant to one aspect of the police objections which you've read. This bit isn't in dispute anymore, I don't think, but there was another company with a very similar name, incorporated and based in the same premises. It had a registered office within the restaurant's premises. That, I understand, came about because another group was seeking to purchase the lease from this family earlier this year, and therefore they set up the company, registered the company. But that didn't go through. That's now in irrelevance. The applicant company, Greek Islands Limited, has always been the same. It's always been the same directorship and control. So I mentioned that in order to, I hope, dispel any sense, as you'd have read, that there was any intention to change the company formation in order to, I think the suggestion was, circumvent the licensing process. I can understand how that might have appeared from a Companies House record. That wasn't the reality, and I understand that's now accepted. The premises is fully covered by CCTV upstairs and actually within the basement as well, although that's not in the licensed premises. In terms of staffing, it is a family business, but in addition to the family, there are staff employed as the waiting staff, and there's a kitchen assistant. So during the evening, there would be Mr. Luwani cooking, a kitchen assistant assisting him, and then 2 waiters, and then Mrs. Luwani as the DPS and as the manager of the premises. There's no under 18s employed. So although it would be possible legally to employ under 18s there. The way that the restaurant is running at the moment is that because it's in a quiet area, it's on the end of Horton Road. I don't know if you already have a good sense of this, but it's 202. It's the far end of Horton Road from the busy areas within the shopping precinct. It's opposite the primary school. They don't really have passing trade. So they operate really by word of mouth, and they're hoping, subject to this application, of course, to begin a better social media exercise in order to generate more trade. But otherwise, they have regular customers, and many from the little area, but then others who travel. They're travelling because of the particular cuisine that's served there, the Greek food. Tends to be an older crowd. I asked Miss Luwani whether she meant old like me, and she told me she did. So old like me. They tend to have people who are repeat to regular customers. There are matters which I'll mention very briefly in relation to the concerns, I think, in relation to disorder within the area. So you'll have read within the police representations, and in particular within the redacted occurrence reports, significant issues on Horton Road. I have to say that I think when one traces through and compares the redacted occurrence record with the full occurrence records, one can see that the matters which are complained of are very largely the other end of Horton Road. It's about a third of a mile away. I suspect the subcommittee will know the area even better than I do, but it would be a walk of, I suspect, 5 or 10 minutes down the road, underneath the park, through the precinct, to that area before you got to the places where there are, it appears, regular issues of disorder related to the bars and pubs in that area. So I don't say that in any way to minimise those concerns, but what I can say is that so far as the actual experience that Ms. Luwani has had in the premises, they haven't had any problems. They've been operating as a bring your own bottle premises since they set up. So there has been alcohol consumed on the premises during that period. They haven't had any problems. There are takeaways and a shop just up the road from them. I don't know whether those premises have these sorts of issues of shoplifting, which are referenced within the redacted occurrence reports, but certainly those aren't something which Ms. Luwani has been aware of, and it has been something that's caused difficulties with her. They've had no problems with littering, matters of that nature. They already have sensible policies in relation to encouraging people to leave quietly, matters of that nature. They haven't had any concerns from local residents, which I'm sure has been reflected in the absence of any local persons' representations at this hearing. In terms of the legal aspects, there are a couple of references to case law within the representations you've received from Ms. Dewhurst. I agree with the representation that's made in relation to the decision in East Lindsey District Council and Abu Hanif. So I think it's a pretty straightforward and well understood premise, and that is this, that you've got to base your thinking today upon a well-informed, evidence-based exercise of good common sense, but you're allowed to look forwards as well as looking backwards. So you aren't pinned and constrained by a need only to look at previous issues. The other case that's referenced is it's referenced as International Sporting Club London Limited, with the 1982 Queen's Bench reference, and then Regina versus Harrow Crown Court. Respectfully, I'm not sure that's right. So I think the case that's being referred to is the Queen and Knightsbridge Crown Court ex parte, International Sporting Club London Limited. If that is the right case, and I know Ms. Dewhurst will tell me swiftly I'm wrong if I've got that wrong, but if that is the correct case, well, that's a complex case which deals with issues which we don't need to worry about today. It's a case, well, I'll mention what it's about very briefly, in case it's a matter that Mr. Price wants to pick up, but it's a case in relation to the use of a legal resolution called certiorari in cases where there's an incomplete Crown Court record. So I don't think that's at all relevant for us today. The outcome of the case, though, was that the licensees, they were gambling licensees in that case, the gambling licensees who had effectively lost their licenses succeeded in that case in showing that the matter ought to go back for further consideration, because although it was relevant to consider a change in company formation, the court hadn't done that properly, and therefore it was effectively at that stage a win, in fact, the licensees rather than for the licensing authority in that case. So I don't think it helps you for today. And I'd also suggest that it's wrong anyway, in that there hasn't been a change of company. The company's always been the same ownership, same directorship, same family running the place. Otherwise, the usual helpful indications that you have within the Daniel Thwaites case, well-known case, Daniel Thwaites and Wirral Magistrates Court apply. You're making decisions based on well-informed common sense. I don't think there's anything that's particularly relevant within the Section 182 guidance in this specific case or within the Statement of Licensing Policy, other than to say that, as your papers rightly say, this falls without the very specific issues mentioned within the Vale and Glamorgan's licensing policy, because it's a small community restaurant as opposed to being a alcohol-led bar or club. So the particular factors that the policy references for those kinds of premises aren't really particularly up to it today. I need to come on to the responsible authority representations. So first of all, I've already, I think, prefaced representations in relation to general concerns about crime and disorder and that licensing objective. What I'd suggest, so far as those are concerned, is that we do need to note that, first of all, the geographical location. This is a quiet area of Horton Road. Grouping it with everything that's on Horton Road, I think, is a little artificial. And it's not the same kind of premises. It's a community restaurant which has been functioning with people bringing their own alcohol for a year without a problem. So unless there's anything that I'm not aware of which is specific to this premises or this area, then I think that concerns about the other end of Horton Road or Horton Road generally, I think aren't such that would lead a licensing committee usually to think that a license ought to be refused. At the very least, they ought to be matters that are capable of being dealt with by way of sensible conditions. I'll mention the conditions. I'm hoping that you do have as Ms Evans referenced, the extra conditions which we're proposing. It's an A4 document with 5, no, forgive me, I'm not looking down far enough, 10 conditions. The first condition I'm going to leave for a moment for a reason which I hope is obvious. The other conditions, though, I hope are helpful, and I have to say this has been, these have been put together through helpful dialogue with Ms Dewhurst, and I'm grateful for that. Are helpful, I hope, to address any remaining concern in relation to general crime disorder. So there's a rather full CCTV condition. There are 2 of them, in fact. CCTV in this particular case is capable of being received by Ms Luani on her phone, even when she's not present in the premises. We also then have an additional condition in relation to a age-related refusals register, or indeed any form of refusals register, at condition 4. Condition in relation to the Challenge 25 policy in condition 5. A training condition in condition 6. A condition for that which already exists at condition 7 in relation to requests for respect for local residents when one is leaving the premises as a customer. Condition in relation to bottle and glass. Condition in relation to the coverage of tables and chairs within the licensable area. We exceed that anyway, but that's helpful, I think, to condition any future use of this premises for another purpose, prevent that. And then a condition in relation to under 18s only being permitted in the premises when accompanied by a responsible adult. So I commend those conditions. I understand that they are also ones that have been drafted with Ms Evans's help in terms of indicating what's usually thought to be appropriate in the Vale of Glamorgan specifically. I do need, Chair, to come on to address another issue, which is specific to Mr Luani. I understand that you're going to enter into a private session in relation to that aspect.
That is correct.
Thank you, Chair. Therefore, I'll follow your lead as far as that's concerned, as in when you want me to address you on that.
Okay. Liz?
I was just going to say whether we need to ask for our legal officer to contribute at this point with any additional around that. Richard, is that okay?
Can't hear you, Richard.
Mr Jones, I'd invite your view on that. I don't think it's necessary to go into part 2, given that the representations are in the public domain, and reference to any criminality is also a matter of public record.
Yes, I've understood the contrary, actually, from previous correspondence, but I understand the point you're making today, Mr Bright. I think the suggestion was made originally by Ms Dewhurst. Now, it may be made with a concern for the applicant. If that's the case, I'm very grateful for that. But if it was made with some other concern, then possibly we ought to check with Ms Dewhurst whether there's something that she was going to relate which is beyond that which is already in the public domain. If there isn't, then I take your point. If there isn't, then I'll be appropriately circumspect in the way that I put things, and we wouldn't need to go into part 2.
Thank you. Chair, perhaps we can check with Ms Dewhurst.
Yeah, that's perfectly great. Ms Dewhurst, would you like to come online, please?
Yes,
Hello.
Good morning. Hi. My concern really was for the applicant as well. I didn't want discussed what is already in the public domain to be taken in the wrong concept by maybe some members of the public who do not hear the full transcript of this discussion. So that was the only reason really I was asking for stage 2, was just to safeguard the applicant and her business.
Richard, can you come back online, please?
Yes, obviously, we're governed by regulation in relation to what amounts to a Part 2. And given that there's no representation before the committee in relation to what exemption it applies to, that I take on board what you're saying, but there isn't an exemption that would prevent this not being in Part 1, and these should be public proceedings.
Okay, I'm happy for it to stay under Part 1. If I can invite Mr. Jones to come back online, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I do want to say thank you to Ms. Dewhurst for being on the lookout for that. The position then is this, then stated bluntly. I'm going to be so bold, if I may, Chair, to suggest that really this is the sole issue of serious contention at this hearing, which is whether the fact that Mr. Luani has a recent conviction is such as to prevent this licensing application succeeding. I don't think that there is case law which helps you tremendously so far as this is concerned. Perhaps the nearest analogy within those cases referenced already is that of Mr. Abu Hanif. Forgive me, I'm just moving within my note. Yes. So the background, I was reminding myself, the background in that case was that the person running the restaurant, it was Zara's restaurant in that case, the person running that restaurant had employed people who weren't able to work within the country. They didn't have the authority to work within the country. That was the background to it. There was a review called by the police. Mr. Hanif, the person who'd employed those individuals, had received a warning and I think a financial penalty. The subcommittee was appropriately concerned and rescinded the licence. There was an appeal to the district judge and the magistrates court, who then took quite a limited view, I think, of the law and said, well, that's already been dealt with by way of the civil penalty. There isn't an indication that it's likely to happen again, and therefore I'm going to return the licence. It then went to the appeal court, and the appeal court, I think unsurprisingly, the High Court, of course, said, no, we think the district judge has got it wrong. You can look forward and look backward. You've got to make a common sense judgment based upon what's happened in the past. And the concern, I think, was that Mr. Hanif really hadn't taken any steps to persuade the licensing subcommittee that things were going to be better in the future and that he'd really addressed the underlying issue. So I think that's perhaps the closest analogy we get, but it isn't a very close analogy. In this case, I suspect the concern is that given this is a small family-run restaurant, that you might have Mr. Luani effectively pulling all the strings and running the show. And Ms. Dewhurst has rightly referenced the fact that although the applicant has always been the company, and therefore Mrs. Luani's father is the director and owner, Mr. Luani is the person who filled out the last application, which was made some time ago, at a point prior to his conviction. No doubt you can hear from Mrs. Luani as well in relation to this. I've spoken to her in detail about it today. First of all, I think it's very important that I don't clumsily give the impression that I'm seeking in any way to minimise or undermine the suggested concerns about Mr. Luani's conviction. I'm not. And Mrs. Luani has not done that with me. She's expressed herself in very strong and emotional terms about it. So I don't want to come across as if I'm taking a different line to her. But what she says about that is this, that Mr. Luani's conviction, first of all, without in any way seeking to excuse it, came about at a time when the family was under immense strain. There was significant lending in order to open the restaurant. They were working to build up custom. They're a young family with young children. They were working around the clock. At the time, Mr. Loani had associated with an individual who Mrs. Loani views as being a bad influence. And on the occasion in question, he drank too much alcohol as well. Again, that's not an excuse, as the probation officer whose report you read rightly points out. But he then engaged in the act, which led to his conviction. It's a tremendous shock to Mrs. Loani. She didn't believe her husband capable of it. I can't, I think, adequately state the degree of upset that caused to the family. But they remain together. They love one another. And Mr. Loani has persuaded Mrs. Loani that he is going to live the remainder of his life in a way which supports their family appropriately, and in a way that she is willing to associate herself with. She's the boss. She's the person who's going to be calling the shots from now on, and she's recognised, as has he, that he cannot be a premises licence holder or even a DPS because of that conviction. That's what brought about the change. He has completed his probation. So you've seen reference to that in the document you've received. That's now complete, that probation, I understand, completed well. He's also undertaken 200 hours of free work. He's also recognising the contribution of alcohol, but not using it as an excuse. Given up alcohol, the way it was put to me is that he hasn't taken a drop since the conviction. He doesn't drink. Mrs. Loani remains acutely aware of how that impacts upon her application. She is the person who's going to be carrying the responsibility as DPS, including, she understands, legal responsibility. And she has sought to, with the help of my colleague, address this within the condition, which I didn't mention earlier, condition 1. So I think there are elements of this which are probably beyond what we can deal with in licensing here, and I'll come on to that. But I'm going to suggest that condition 1 is an appropriate condition, and one which you can legally make with one small change. So it says at the moment that Mr. Spiro Loani will not be involved in the day-to-day running of the business. His only role is being employed as chef. He will not participate in waiter service, alcohol service, staffing decisions, such as hiring, retention or dismissals, or stock control. It did cross my mind that staffing decisions and stock control are possibly matters which stand outside of that which can be subject to condition, even if it's volunteered. It seems to me that staffing decisions are appropriate to be included because they include staffing decisions about who is going to be day-to-day bringing bottles of alcohol to the table, matters of that nature. And therefore, I think it's appropriate that Mr. Loani is excluded from that and that it falls to Mrs. Loani. As far as stock control is concerned, I'm going to suggest that's probably too broad without being pedantic, and that it should say alcohol stock control. So effectively, we would take Mr. Loani away from the arrangements in relation to alcohol stock control only. But subject to the insertion of the extra word alcohol, that's the condition which the applicant is recommending to the subcommittee in order to assuage any concern in relation to Mr. Loani's conviction. I know that Mrs. Loani will be able to address you directly if you wish to ask her questions about this particular issue. She does respond emotionally, which I think is understandable, and probably something of a reassurance in relation to this matter. I think she will be able to re-emphasise the way in which she views that past conviction and its future effect. Can I make one further submission, which I think is one of legal principle? I think we do need to be careful to work out what the boundaries are for licensing and what the boundaries are for the licensing objectives. So it's clearly the case that a previous conviction of that nature is relevant in terms of anybody holding the position of premises licensee or DPS. That's understood, and that's what's brought about the application in its current form. I'm going to suggest that it's appropriate to limit Mr. Luani's influence within the management and running of the restaurant in the way that's suggested within condition 1. I think that's within bounds. Subject to the advice you received from Mr. Price, I think we've got to be careful about stepping too much further, because we can't seek to limit Mr. Luani in a way that the criminal courts haven't sought to limit him. So he has been subject to a sentence. He's still subject to a continuing reporting requirement. He isn't and couldn't be subject to any requirement not to be working, or not to be working where he employs persons, or not to be working in a place where alcohol is sold, or not to be working, or not to be drinking in his own public or private life. So all of those matters, I think, which are really the issues which address the risk of any future offending, are ones which fall to the criminal courts to deal with, rather than this licensing subcommittee, I'd suggest. I'd also suggest this. It is a recent conviction. I don't seek to get away from that. But some time has passed since the point of the offence and the point of the conviction. This restaurant has run during that period without there being any further concern reported to the police, without any concern being referenced by local persons. And in that period, Mr. Luani has been working as the chef, and the restaurant has been running with people bringing their own alcohol. So I'd suggest that there is at least some body of experience now to evidence that this restaurant can run appropriately, notwithstanding the existence of that conviction. So those are my submissions, Chair, in relation to the application. And of course, you can have the opportunity to hear from Mr. Luani directly, and I'll deal with any matters arising from representation in closing.
Okay, Councillor Norman has her hand up first, so can I bring in Councillor Norman, please?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Hennessy. Mr. Jones, if I could address you, please, back on screen.
Could you come back on screen?
Thank you very much. My one query, you did say that Mrs. Luani would be in charge, etc., etc. And you said she can pick up CCTV on her phone even if she's not there. Who's going to be in charge when she isn't there, please?
Well, they have a waiting workforce. So her intention is that she can't be there all the time. So in busy times, she'll be there in person. And when she's not able to be there, the waiting staff will be in charge of the service of alcohol. She's been very clear that, as is conditioned, what she's going to do is she's going to take them through the training particularly carefully. That said, one of the questions I asked her, I think perhaps Ms. Norman, the question you've asked is one that I perhaps prefaced in my meeting with her earlier this morning. The way I put it was this, I tried to put it very, very tangibly. If I walked in there at 7 p.m. tonight on hopefully a busy Friday evening, and for whatever reason, Mrs. Luani was not able to be present, perhaps because of commitments to the family or matters of that nature, and one of the persons at the table, and this isn't something you've experienced to date, but one of their customers, got drunk and was demanding a further bottle of wine, and there was concern about whether this person should be served. Who would be the person making the decision? Mr. Luani's indication was that it would be the waiting staff, not Mr. Luani, but that she would be immediately on call, so that in the event that they didn't feel able to make the decision themselves, or to deal with the matter themselves, then they would be calling her. So there is no alternative general manager or anything of that nature, but Mrs. Luani is the boss when she's present. The waiting staff are the boss when she's not, save that they can call her and receive her assistance either on the phone or with her coming down to the restaurant.
Thank you. And she's convinced that the waiting staff are experienced enough to deal with this on their own.
Yes, I mean, by all means, do hear from her directly if you wish, because these things are more tangible directly, I know. But yes, she is. But she's conscious that we move to a different level if and when a license is granted. And that's the reason why she's committed to the additional training for them as well.
Thank you very much.
Can I call Councillor Bruce in now, please?
Did you say that they had children?
Yes,
She has
they've got
children. She's a very busy mum.
Yes. Yes, I mean, they've got young children as well. So I don't want to shy away from that. The children have got care arrangements. So it's not as if she's a stay-at-home mum, but she does have that as well. Again, I'm risk of repeating myself. Some of this may be more clear to understand directly from Mrs. Luani, but I'll read from the notes that I took from her this morning. So when I asked her about this sort of matter, what she said to me is that we are putting our hearts into this. This is our family future. This is our family business. All of my time is going into this. That she is entirely committed to it. She has no other employment. She has no other commitment beyond the important commitment to the family. When I was speaking to Mr. Luani, and currently, as she's attending this hearing, it's Mr. Luani, of course, who's seeing to the children. So they're effectively a double act with other family supports and with Sure Start and various other supports. So she does have that commitment to young children, but very, very clearly this business is what they see as their family future, and she's fully committed to it as well.
Okay, I have just one question before I bring in Mr. Luani. Councillor Norman brought a point that if the applicant is not present on the premises, you're saying that the waiter staff would be in charge, correct?
That's right.
Currently, the applicant's husband is the chef, did you say?
That's right.
One of my concerns is that the waiter staff, will they be able to tell the applicant that they're in charge and that they have the final say? Because he technically is the husband of the owner. I just have a concern that, and I don't know if the applicant can answer that, but
I do think that she may answer it even better than I'll attempt to. But just so we understand the relationships, the applicant is a limited company, of course, but it's a one-man limited company, and the owner and director is Mrs. Luani's father. So the applicant and the owner of the lease and of the business is Mrs. Luani's father. So there's the top of the pile, if you will. Then we have Mr. Luani as the chef, and we have Mrs. Luani as the general manager, the person who runs the business, and the person who would assume the responsibility of being the DPS. Your question, Chair, I entirely understand, is, well, hang on, if you've got the husband of the general manager in the kitchen, you haven't got the general manager. Are the waiting staff going to defer to him as being the person who would appear to have the greater authority? The answer to that is no, as far as Ms. Luani is concerned. She is the person who is in charge of that because it's necessary, because of the conviction. And the staff will then understand that they must defer to her in relation to those issues. Mr. Luani might have the final say in relation to how the mazaka is cooked. I don't say that to be flippant, I'm looking for an example. But so far as the licence activity is concerned, it will be Mrs. Luani, present or not.
Okay, can I ask Mrs. Luani to come in, please, now?
Hello.
Good morning. Hello.
Now
I'm
Lydia.
happy for you to answer any questions what have been brought up, and then I will ask Councillor Norman or Councillor Bruce if they have any questions for you then, okay?
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Sorry about my English, first of all. Maybe it's not perfect, but I will try to explain myself. So I would ask about my kids. I have my mother living near my house, just across the road. So I can leave my kids anytime with her. We open business 5 p.m. in the evening, and my mom finished job at 4 p.m. So she's available during the evening to take care of my kids. During the day, I'm going to the restaurant to check everything about the stock, everything about delivery, what is needed there, because I have my kids in nursery. So my son is Flying Start Nursery and my daughter is at nursery. So as Mr. Jones explained, we are putting our heart in this business. It's like another kid of us because it's the only family wage and salary we have, just this business. So thank you for everything.
Okay, Councillor,
I will be
go on.
responsible. Sorry, I will be responsible for everything. All the legal responsibilities will be with me. I will train my waitress for the selling alcohol. For the 25 policy. If he gets an order from an under 18, he will ask for ID. I will train him. He can call me anytime. Since the restaurant is open 5 p.m., I leave cameras on my laptop and I'm checking everything when I'm not there. But if anything happens, I can go there because my mom is here and I can go anytime. She helps me with the kids a lot at the moment, and she will be helping me, of course, because it's my dad's restaurant. So we are running this business together. If there is any other question.
Okay. Councillor Norman, Councillor Bruce, do you have any questions, please? Councillor Norman.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mrs. Luani. You're saying it's your father's business.
Yes.
Why hasn't your father applied for the license?
Because to apply for the license, you need to know better English. My dad cannot write in English, and he said to me, "You are the manager of my restaurant. You are my daughter. I leave everything with you. If you run this business well, I'd be so happy as a father. It's my father, so he leaves everything on me. He
Thank you.
believes in me, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Bruce.
Yes.
Yes. So if you have a very large drunk man come in demanding alcohol, how are you going to deal with that? With that sort of person?
Yeah, I will ask him that please leave the restaurant, and if he's not listening to me, then I will call the police if he stays there for a long time and he doesn't go. I don't want to have problems for the community and for the restaurant as well. So we will try with the waitress to do our best. If he doesn't change his mind and if he does something wrong in the restaurant, of course, we will call the police. Hopefully this won't happen. But if this happens, of course, we will call the police then.
Okay, are you happy, Councillor Bruce? Councillor Bruce?
I've frozen.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, there. Are you happy, Councillor Bruce? Yeah. You heard my question when it came to, you said when you're not there, your waiter staff would be in control.
Yeah.
What assurance do you have that your husband will not just pull weight and tell your waiter staff what to do?
No, because my husband, I'm sure he hasn't time to go out of the kitchen because he's the only chef there. And when he's busy, we'll have just an assistant. So I know that he would never do that.
2 seconds. Liz, can you come online for a sec, please?
Hello, Chair.
Councillor Bruce has just come in to tell me that her battery's died.
Okay, Chair, we'll try and find a solution to that for her if we can, arrange any assistance for Councillor Bruce. I'll try and do that in the background. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, she's in the independence room opposite mine.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you don't mind holding on for a second.
It's okay.
Hi, Richard, if you like to.
Yeah, I was just going to say, obviously, we need to stop matters until Councillor Bruce is able to hear the rest of it. That's all.
Yeah, I'm happy for that. Liz, we're going to pause for a second, okay?
Thank you for that. If you want to all come off screen for a moment, we'll just put the a brief holding screen up while I go and assist Councillor Bruce. Thank you. Hi, Chair. I believe.
Hello, thank you very much for doing that, Liz. I do appreciate it.
No problem.
I shall just check with Councillor Bruce to see if she's connected now.
Yes, I'm connected.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and we okay to carry on with proceedings from where we left off? I believe we were clarifying some questions with Mrs. Luani. Is that correct?
Yes, we were. If Mrs. Luani, if you could come back on, thank you very much. I do appreciate any problems, technical issues do occasionally happen.
Thank you so much.
You were answering my question when it comes to, can you give an assurance that your husband will have no say whatsoever and that your waiter staff would be able to stand up to your husband?
Yes, of course. This is the main condition I have discussed with my husband. He is my dad's employee. He will do what my dad say, me as manager. He is my husband in a private matter at home, but there is a business and there is a job. So we will do all the best, what is needed for the best of the community and the restaurant, as I said before. So we will complete all necessary conditions. And I know that my husband, it's no including in nothing matter to alcohol or serving as a waitress. He's just a chef there. He's a chef. He will be working in the kitchen as he has been until now. But now will be added this condition that he will never ask somebody, any customers, about anything needed. This will be just me and the waitress. I will train for it if we get grant for the license, of course. So even now, my husband is not including in nothing matters in the area of the customers. He's just the chef preparing the food and like an employee, is an employee.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. Right, I'll ask one more time if anyone else has any questions for Mrs. Luani. Now, Councillor Bruce or Councillor Norman?
No, nothing, thank you.
Okay.
Nothing from me, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We will be calling on other people now to speak. I'm happy for you to stay. Right, can I call now, please, the representative from the police, Claire Dewhurst, sorry.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much for being present. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. As you said, my name is Claire Dewhurst. I'm a police licensing officer for Cardiff and the Vale. I'm representing South Wales Police as I am here to object to the application for the premise licence Greek Island, 202 Houghton Road, Barry. I am aware of the amendments of the applicants by the applicant's solicitor, now notably being on sales of alcohol, only Monday to Sunday, 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. Each of you have read my statement as to why I'm objecting and a list of the redacted occurrences that show the levels of crime and disorder within the area. I'll not go over these as I would be simply stating facts and duplication. It is a matter of significant concern that an individual connected to the management of this premise is recently convicted of a sexual assault, non-penetration, and is now on the sex offenders register. Even more troubling is that the offence in question, a serious sexual assault, was committed on these very same premises. Let me be clear, this is not historic or an irrelevant conviction. It is recent. It has occurred at this location and the individual remains under legal supervision. Their active role is being the head chef or whatever the title is, in an active role that he is the applicant's husband and seeking permission to sell alcohol presents a clear and ongoing risk to the public. Mr. Luani stated that you will apply again, and now his wife is applying for him. They have 2 young children in preschool. The mother, the applicant, is the sole provider, and this application is a ruse to bypass the licensing legislation as per 1.9 of the guidance. And the 1.9 of the guidance, I just want to say that this guidance cannot anticipate every possible scenario or set of circumstances that may arise. And as long as the licensing authorities have properly understood this guidance, they may depart from it if they have good reason to do so and can provide full reasons. In order to tackle and reason my objections, I will go through the updated recommended conditions that have been put forward by the applicant's solicitor. With regards to Mrs. Luani, withdrawal of the need and requirement of the off-sale of alcohol, this will indeed curtail some of my concerns, but certainly not all of my concerns regarding the crime and disorder in the area. They've stated that they will have CCTV. This condition assists with the recording of any crime and disorder within the customer area. This does not capture any staffing area that will be of concern. They have an incident book. This makes for good record keeping for any crime or disorder and will correspond with a CCTV condition. But due to the applicant's close relationship with the offender, then I would be dubious that if this would be adhered to. They have a challenge 25 that assists with the sale of alcohol. Staff authorised to carry out licensable activity shall receive initial training. I think Mrs. Luani said that she will train the staff. I'm not sure whether that would be appropriate and whether she would need to instruct a proper basis, classroom basis for the staff to be trained within that field to understand the legislation with regard to alcohol sales. There's conditions relating to noise. There's conditions to bottles and glass. This condition limits the risk of violence, but this could be taken one step further and for non-glass vessels to be used. They had any sale of alcohol for consumption off the premises shall be in manufacturing sealed containers. This condition would not be required now due to the withdrawal of the off sales. Even with the off sale of alcohol removed from the application, then my concern would be the on sales of alcohol with the incident that occurred. And the incident number for that is 1151. Just to give you a brief summary of what happened was there was an attempt of sexual assault today on the girlfriend. I'll read it out to you. She was at a job. You teach them the ropes of the business. You teach them the till. You teach them, you know, maybe to wipe the tables down, to look at the menus, to introduce them to the restaurant. But for them to sell her, to sit down and to just play on her phone. And then sometime later then they began to start drinking. And they wanted, you know, the staff to be drinking alcohol at 5 p.m. It wasn't a shandy, it was a top shelf alcoholic drink. It was Jack Daniels. Jack Daniels is what, 40, 50% alcohol? You know, a bottle of wine is 12%, but giving somebody, a young lady, Jack Daniels at 5 p.m. in the afternoon and plying them with that strength of alcohol is not something, is something disturbing in my book. And then smoking and vaping and forcing her to smoke. This is not painting a very good picture of the premise. The town centre staff smoking and drinking on the premises. This is not certainly the type of premise that Barry Town Centre is calling out for. And then the unthinkable happened, being shown the stockroom and for the applicant's husband to force themselves on the poor girl. And as per the Vale of Glamorgan corporate plan, residents, businesses and visitors to the Vale of Glamorgan council area deserve to have a wide choice of high quality and well-managed entertainment and cultural venues operating within a safe, orderly and attractive environment. The council recognising the role of responsibly operated businesses which support the local economy. This premise certainly does not do that. Mr. Luani, after he was arrested, he evaded contact with his solicitor. This is a different solicitor than that we have today. His previous solicitor could not get hold of him by phone. It was out of service. And the same for the police. He evaded contact for some while, and that's why his bail was extended. And when officers visited the premise, they were told by some of the staff they think that he was on holiday. On the 26th of July then, when I spoke to him on the phone, this is 2024, when he applied first off, he told me then that he'd reapply again for the application. And I believe that this application is a step taken to circumvent the licensing process, as the exceptional circumstances would lead to the undermining of the Licensing Act objectives, and specifically the prevention of crime and disorder. There's other conditions within the premise that I'm sceptical of. They say that the premise will be, there'll be public space within the licensable space would be held with 60% of furniture, of dining furniture, what will the other 40% be for? They said in their application that they wanted music. They didn't realise that this was only after 11 p.m. and that they'd have to apply for that. So me reading between the lines, is that 40% of the space going to be using for dancing, music, and encouraging people to participate in that type of activity at the premise? Persons, they've also put forward, persons under the age of 18 are only permitted on the premise when accompanied by a responsible adult who is over the age of 18 years. How will this be risk implemented? If Mrs. Luani is not there, it would be down then to the waiting staff to judge that and to tackle anybody coming into the premise be under 18. They wouldn't be able to serve them. I think that they would need a manager within that place, and I believe that the waiting staff would turn to the most senior person within the premise, which would be the chef. I've tried to deal with this application in a logical and thoughtful way, trying to think outside of the box. I've never dealt with an application of this nature whereby the applicant is in denial of her husband's wrongdoings. The condition for Mr. Luani will not be involved into the day-to-day running of the business. His only role is being employed as a head chef or chef. He will not participate in waiter services, alcohol service, staffing decisions. I forwarded a head chef job description, whether this is a head chef or a chef job description. If you're a chef within the kitchen, you need items in order to cook with. Who will you be asking to help you get those items? And if they're in the basement, then you would be asking members of the staff to get it for you. You wouldn't leave your workstation, your cooker empty. You wouldn't run off and get these ingredients. You would be asking people to get these items for you. So I believe that he will have some type of managerial role within the premise. With regards to further notes that I've made, with regards to the application, Mr. Luani spells his name L-O-U-A-N-I. Mrs. Luani spells it L-U-A-N-I. Generally, when people misspell their own name, it is to evade and to add confusion or try to hide a negative history. And that leads me on to the family business. The company's house register still stands with another 2 people registered as record holders of the Greek restaurant at 202. So there is still some confusion there as to who actually owns it. Because when I spoke to Mrs. Luani, she informed me that those 2 people approached her to sell the business to them for no fee, but they will cover other avenues. It doesn't sit right with me that there's another company registered there, and that's why I believe that they are trying to evade and take a license out still and get a husband to manage the premise. Just a couple of notes that I've made as we've been discussing or I've been listening to the application. With regards to Mr. Luani, there's no restrictions on his licence, as when he was convicted of the offence, he did not inform the judge at the time that he was a personal licence holder. I believe that if he told the judge at the time that he was a personal licence holder, then the judge would have implemented working conditions on his licence. Because he didn't, I believe that is why that there is no restrictions. In order for Mr. Luani to relinquish his personal licence, I had to approach Cardiff City Council and inform them of his conviction, and they then contacted Mr. Luani for Mr. Luani to relinquish his personal licence. And I believe that that is the factor in this case, that he should have relinquished his licence. And if the judge was made aware at the time of his conviction, then there would be restrictions on his working place. working placement. Thank you for listening to me, and if you do have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Llywani, before I bring in yourself, I will bring in the councillors first, please. Councillor Bruce or Councillor Norman, do you wish to ask any questions? Claire Dewhurst, could you come back online, please?
Yes, sorry.
Councillor Bruce.
Sorry, no questions from me.
Okay. Councillor Norman?
None from me either, Chair.
Okay. I just have one. Thank you. I just have one. You said, could you please tell me again, did you say he was on the sex offender register? Or was I hearing that then?
Yes, he's on the sex offenders register for a sexual assault, non-penetrative.
Right. So, layperson. Does that mean he's not allowed anywhere near children or adults? Or what, please, can you explain?
No, there's no restrictions on his licence. He has the community order. He has to spend 200 hours. Bear with me a second. Let me just get the document up so I can read it fully to you. So it's just for clarification. Thank you. Bear with me a second. Sorry, bear with me a second.
No, that's perfectly okay.
Thank you. Okay, so at Cardiff Magistrates Court on the 7th of the 1st, 25, he pleaded guilty. He was remanded on conditional bail 3rd of the 2nd, 25. Suspended imprisonment for 18 weeks, wholly suspended 15 months. Sexual assault, intentionally touch female, no penetration. The disposal cost is compensation. He's on a sex offenders notice register for 7 years. He has an unpaid work requirement, and there was a victim surcharge paid, and it comes under the rehabilitation activity requirement. So
Okay.
he's on, yeah.
You just said you had a non-paid work piece on there, did you?
Unpaid work requirement, yes.
Right, okay, no worries.
I believe that's the 200 hours.
Okay, no worries. Mrs. Llywani, I did see you had your hand up. Did you want to come in?
Yes. Hello, Miss Dewhurst. Thank you so much for showing everything and explaining everything. So many of those things I didn't know before, of course, and it's hard for me. So because I'm a little bit emotionally. About the surname, I wanted to explain that because it's the first time I'm hearing about the surname, and it get to me like strange. So my husband has 2 passports. He is Albanian and Greek. We got married in Albanian. I am Albanian. And since he was born in Albanian, his surname in Albanian is Louani, like me. We got married in Albanian, and we have the same surname. It's before 6 years ago now. And he got the Greek passport, but the Greek passport changed his name and his surname. So in the Greek passport, he has another name and surname. So it's Spyros Louani. But in Albanian, my husband has the name is Spiro, Spiro, just Spiro Luani. So we have the same surname, but just he has Greek passport, and his identity here in UK is with Greek passport, not with Albanian passport. This is that I wanted to explain. And about what has happened today, of course, I don't want to mention. It's very hard for me. It's a shock for me to hear what my husband has done. But of course, it's not normally to ask a new employee sit down. This couldn't happen. It's impossible to happen. I wasn't manager at that time. My husband was that time, but he was drunk. He didn't. He was. I don't. It's not an excuse, of course, but he was drunk. All that day was the most terrible day for us. We got complaint from our customers. We cannot forget that day. He was drunk. He didn't do nothing what he should do at the restaurant, not just for the girl, but the cook. Everything that day was completely wrong. We are just trying to forget that and to go ahead. I didn't know that all those problems will be facing with me again. And I feel really sad about that. And about the, my husband won't be anymore. I can attend all legal requirements for that. I'm sure he won't be, because he's not only regretful, but he's terribly sad what has happened. Another thing is he didn't know English. I don't know how he has spoken with you over the phone. His English is terribly bad. I can show everywhere he cannot write English and he cannot read English. That's very important to say. So my husband doesn't read English and doesn't write English. He can speak, but not explain like I'm explaining. So I'm just telling maybe he has misunderstood something over the words, because his English is terribly bad. I think that you should have noticed his English as well. But he cannot write and read English. That's the most important. He cannot write and read English. Even he has many years here. I don't know, he doesn't like English, but he can't write, he can't read English. That's another point of thing. Maybe you should know about that. Thank you again for everything. I completely understand you. I really understand you.
Okay, so, thank you very much. If you can come off screen for a second, please. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Claire, please?
Chair, if I may, forgive me, I'll defer, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Bruce.
I'd like to ask Claire if she knew about the dual passports. Did you know about them?
No, I didn't.
I think that's very concerning myself. You know, it's two totally different names. Very concerning.
Yes. Okay. Right. Thank you very much, Claire. You're very happy to. Oh, sorry, Mr. Jones.
Chair, yes, I did have questions, and I deferred to Ms. Bruce.
Sorry, I do apologise.
There's quite a lot of new information there, Chair, so I'm going to take this gradually. I'll try and be as efficient as I can, I think. So far as the concern over Mr. Luani's name is concerned, because that cropped up last in Ms. Bruce's question, is that something that, Ms. Dewis, you discussed with either Mr. Luani or Mrs. Luani previously?
I've only just noticed it now. I only just noticed when I was looking through my notes whether it was a typo or whether it was indeed, in fact, a spelling. And Mrs. Luani has just confirmed that it wasn't a typo. There is 2 passports. So this is just new information to myself as well.
No, there's limits, I understand, Ms. Dewis, to what I can ask you fairly in relation to this. And some of this may take us beyond what's appropriate for a licensing hearing. But have you experience of persons coming into the UK where their home language is not English.
Mr. Jones, can I just pause you there for a second? Richard, is this all right to be under part 1 of these questions? Can't hear you.
Yes, it's fine for it to continue under part 1. It's up to Mr. Jones how he presents his case. The matter's been put in the public domain and he's entitled to ask questions concerning it.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Go on, Mr. Jones.
Chair, if it assists, my anxiety is as to whether it's even relevant for you in a licensing hearing. So I will try and be careful about that. It certainly isn't an issue for public-private. Let me put it very directly, Ms. Dewhurst. I think lots of people who come into this country from other places where their alphabet and their language isn't English end up having different spellings. And I think that happens depending on which passport you have. Is that something which you have any experience from in your previous work as a police officer?
Let me just be clear. I'm not a police officer. I'm police staff. I'm a police licensing officer, but not police officer. So in my experience working for South Wales Police for 22 years, having worked in various departments within the police service, it is known within police officers that if people are evading, they will either change their date of birth by a couple of digits or their name they will change and change, letters around or omit letters. I'm not saying that has happened within this case, but it's just literally, I just noticed it yesterday, looking through paperwork. I noticed, okay, there's a spelling error. And obviously, I've raised that as a query, and Mrs. Luani then admitted that she does have 2 passports, one being Albanian and one being Greek. I'm not sure whether, what that encumbers within the Licensing Act 2003. But it's just, become apparent to myself. So I'd have to take advice myself going forward.
I think that's helpful. So I think the point is there's I've heard an element of concern expressed for the subcommittee. I can't not address it. I think it's probably an irrelevance. All right, I'll be blunt about that. But are you in making formal representations?
2 seconds, Mr. Jones. Richard?
Chair, I'm in agreement with Mr. Jones. I don't think it's a matter for consideration at this committee. Obviously, the concerns put forward by South Wales Police are the employment of this individual, but this individual isn't the applicant in this case.
Okay, I'm happy for that. So I'm
I'll
happy
leave that there, Chair.
Your point.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll leave that there. Next question then was in relation to the 40% used for dancing. I really hadn't seen that coming, Ms. Dewhurst, and I had read very carefully your submissions, your representations, and the dialogue that you had with my colleague, Nicola Jordan. Is that really a concern? And if so, how can we condition it?
It was only, I just noticed it as you were talking and you were saying with regards to the music. So it's only that I've just picked up on that now. So if there is a condition saying that it's 60%, normally premises will offer a condition of, say, 70% of the floor space will be used by tables and chairs. I did raise that with Nicola the other day, but on your recommendations, it still says 60. So when I was alerted to the fact that they did apply for music originally, but then they only realised then that was after 11 p.m, did I think then that, okay, if they're asking for 60%, what are they doing with the rest of the 40% of the space? And generally 40% of the space then is used for other activities, and that being maybe dance if there is music in operation there. And then that would lead obviously to other crime or disorder or other conditions that you would be able to put on a licence or make recommendations. I cannot think off the top of my head at the moment what those would be, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, you could say no dancing, couldn't you? Yes, all right. Look, I can deal with that in closing then, I think, probably. You also asserted that the premises don't meet the objectives to provide varied entertainment and offerings to local residents in the Vale of Glamorgan. From where does that arise?
That was from a statement that I read from Cardiff Council's statement of policy, I believe.
No, we understand what the licensing policy is seeking to achieve. It's seeking to achieve varied opportunities for local residents in Barry and elsewhere in terms of their nightlife. How does a Greek community restaurant not serve that objective?
From the past incidents of staff members sitting at the restaurant drinking alcohol and smoking, I didn't think that that was an appropriate type of business for the Barry area.
I see. So the assertion then was limited to this indication, this serious concern which led to the conviction. It's about that day, is it?
Sorry, do you mean the crime and disorder within the area, or?
No, sorry, I don't. I'll come on to that. So are you suggesting that this premises doesn't meet the ambition of the Vale Glamorgan licensing policy because of what occurred on the day that led to the conviction? Or are you suggesting there are any other factors the subcommittee should take into account?
No, I'm just suggesting that that would seem that the incident on that particular day that led to that conviction, it would seem that that is the way in that they run their business on a daily basis. That it didn't seem that that was a one-off, that they were sat around drinking.
Right. I think that does take us on to then to the more general crime and disorder concerns. Within the opening, I suggested to the subcommittee that we were on safe ground, and not on safe ground. We were confident that the issues referenced in terms of crime and disorder were not ones that happened in the part of Horton Street which is occupied by the Greek island. Do you wish to dispute that in any way?
The facts are there on the occurrences, on whether you believe that it's at the south end or the north end of Holton Road. There is, just because somebody buys alcohol within a specific area, it doesn't mean that they're limited to that area. So for Holton Road area, there's an area called Kin Square, and we generally historically have issues there, and that is off Holton Road. And then we have issues then, pockets of areas within Barry. But at the moment, we are working really hard in targeting those areas. So the community officers are there more and they're carrying out operations to target crime and disorder within the area. But what I've submitted is correct with regards to the time frame of incidents. There are other incidents during the day. It's not just a nighttime issue, crime and disorder. It also happens between 9 a.m. and 4 a.m. as well. I'm not sure if you know the area, if you walk down that street during the day. There are incidences everywhere, but I just try to curtail the occurrences to those hours of alcohol, which was 4 to 11 p.m. So that's all I have to say on that. I can't go any further than what I already have.
Well, I will push just a bit further if I may. I'll ask some very discreet questions, and I'm not going to tell you whether I walk and cycle there, which I do, because it's not relevant. But the point is this, isn't it? That you've put forward occurrences. It's relevant for the subcommittee if it's concerned about general crime and disorder, as opposed to the issue about Mr. Luani. It's relevant for it to understand how proximate, how close to this premises those things are, because it's a long road. Can you tell the subcommittee of the occurrences you've listed of general crime and disorder, how many of them are within 100 yards of the Greek island?
It's a couple of minutes walk. I wouldn't know within like 100 yards, 200 yards. There is a certain area where there are further incidences further down the road on Holton Road, where they have a later license that further incidences occur. But then when you put another premise at the top of the road, then you're just going to, attract more people within that area And then if they don't have the relevant conditions on their licence to tackle that, like, you know, SIA conditions curtailing the alcohol sales, then it would contribute further to crime and disorder. And as Mrs. Luwani said, that if somebody came into their premise and she could not remove them, then she'd be calling the police to assist them. So we are there to assist people in need. And I just believe that the incidents that already occur in the area would attribute to further crime and disorder, because the original conditions put forward did not adhere to them. Yes, you have tackled the incidences and made recommendations to tackle the incidences, but they still could go a little bit further. SIA on a Friday or a Saturday, something along those lines to try and inhibit further disarray, and that would most probably assist Mrs. Luwani with if there are any people who are at a horror of drunk behaviour and she's unable to remove them from the premise. I hope that's answered your question.
The question was how many of the incidents referenced were within 100 yards. I don't think we've answered that. Can I ask you this then? How many of the incidents relate directly to the Greek island? Is there any incident that's been reported other than the serious conviction for which Mr. Luwani was responsible? Is there any incident that's been reported in relation to the Greek island?
Other than the serious incident, there hasn't been any further incidences reported at that premise.
That's relevant, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Is that mentioned within your report?
I've listed one offence. I didn't need to comment to say that there was any more.
All right. Is this a cumulative impact area?
No, I don't believe it is.
So would you accept that some of your references to general crime and disorder within Barry Town Centre as a whole, or at the other end of Halton Road, aren't relevant to this subcommittee?
They are relevant because they're crime and disorder within the area.
Lastly then, Ms. Dewis, I'm sorry to take up time. Shall we just try together, and Mr. Price can assist us if he needs to clear up where we are in relation to continuing restrictions for Mr. Luwani. I'll test my understanding and you can put me right if I get this wrong. So, Mr. Luwani was previously the holder of a personal alcohol licence and has now given it up. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. Did you look into his previous employment in alcohol premises, or was that not part of your work?
It's not part of my work. It's just dealing with the application now.
Right. I would ask you about that then. He was convicted and received a suspended prison sentence. He's still subject to that.
Yes.
He received 200 hours of unpaid work, and that is what he's completed. Or perhaps you don't know. Do you know if he's completed that?
I don't know that. No, the information doesn't show that to me.
Okay. He was asked to undertake rehabilitation, and he worked with a probation officer who reported that he engaged well. Is that correct?
Yes, I gave notification via an email of the probation manager of his comments of Mr. Luwani.
Were you suggesting that he's subject to any post-imprisonment licence? Because I think the answer is that he isn't.
No, he's not, but he is on a sex offenders register for 7 years.
All right. And so that laypersons understand, there's a difference between registration and a sex offenders prevention order, isn't there?
I don't come under that arena. I'm a licensing officer. What I've read is that there's two parts. If he was of a serious risk, then he would be on one type of register, and if he's deemed not as serious, he'd be on another.
I'm not sure it's quite right, but I'll deal with that in closing in that case. Thank you very much, Ms. Dewis. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. Anyone else have any questions for Mrs. Dewhurst? No. Okay, I would like to bring the applicant and her representative in now, please, for closing responses.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Mr. Jones.
Do you mind if I pick up on the last point then, Chair, just because it's fresh in our minds? I'll tell you what I think the position is, and then Mr. Price can help us then if there's anything I get wrong. So from what I've heard from Ms. Dewhurst and from Ms. Luani, I think the position is that Mr. Luani is subject to registration, which means that he's got an obligation to report to the police if he changes his circumstances, he moves elsewhere. Still a serious matter. It's a matter of a reporting requirement which will continue for a further 7 years. It's not a sex offender prevention order, so in a case where there was concern about the risk of future offences, then orders can be made which can confine people from doing certain jobs or being in certain areas. And that is not what exists in this case. I think it's important to say that, number one, for the purpose of this hearing, and number two, because of the fact that this is a public hearing. So far as the application as a whole is concerned, I'm not sure that I need to add very much more to what I and Ms. Luani said in opening. So the situation is fundamentally, I think, as it was. This is a community restaurant. It's been open for a year and running with alcohol on a bring your own bottle basis for that period. I'm going to suggest that it is lower risk, and I think that's acknowledged within the statement of licensing policy, because it is a sit-down, eat restaurant as opposed to a vertical drinking establishment or a bar or a nightclub. I'm going to suggest that the conditions, as suggested to you, with the additional conditions, are the appropriate ones to proportionately protect the licensing objectives for the ongoing functioning of this restaurant. I'm going to suggest respectfully that conditions such as having SIA, dual staff, etc., present are really rather beyond anything that's expected of restaurants who close at 11 and stop serving alcohol at 10:30. I think that would be rather...
Liz, I don't know what's happened. Mr. Jones has disappeared.
He seems to be rejoining now. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Chair, I should have seen that coming. 11:45 every Friday is our fire alarm, so I should have seen it coming. My apologies for
that.
That slightly distracted me. I hope it hasn't distracted the subcommittee. What I was suggesting is that conditions such as SI door staff are really beyond that, which is usually considered proportionate. We have taken some effort here to try to match the set of conditions with those which we know are used commonly within the Vale. Every case is different, but I'd suggest that conditions of that nature are really rather beyond what is appropriate. I do stick to my suggestion, my submissions on behalf of the applicant company that when one is considering general crime and disorder, you really do need to take a view as to what is relevant to a restaurant, what is relevant to the particular area of that restaurant, and what is likely to be a concern given the experience of the previous trading of this restaurant for quite a long period now. And I'd suggest that general crime and disorder outside a cumulative impact area, which would do no more than reverse the burden, is not something which should prevent this restaurant being licensed. I'm going to suggest that the heart of this application and the objection to it, the proper objection to it, is Mr. Luani's previous conviction. I think that's what we're here for. So far as that's concerned, you've heard the opinion put forward by Ms. Dewhurst. She suggested to you that Mrs. Luani is in denial of her husband's wrongdoing. I'm sure that's not easy for Mrs. Luani to hear, but it's really a matter for you as a subcommittee, I'd suggest, to judge whether that is a true representation of Mrs. Luani's position, and to judge whether, even if it is, that is something which so directly addresses the licensing objectives as to prevent an obstacle to this existing restaurant being licensed. What I'm going to suggest to you is that you have considerable evidence on the other side. You have a frank and candid indication from Mrs. Luani of how she views that history, how she's going to run things in the future. And you have that backed up with what I would suggest is an appropriately detailed and enforceable and appropriate condition. Condition 1 within the additional conditions, which excludes Mr. Luani from those management roles and which is enforceable in that way. Finally, I'm at risk of repeating myself, but I am going to suggest that if we have, as I think we probably all do, in the back of our minds, concerns about whether Mr. Luani would, notwithstanding the changes he's made in his life, commit an offence in future, then we are at risk of taking ourselves beyond what we can consider in the context of the Licensing Act 2003. The criminal court is the appropriate body to gauge future risk of that sort of offending, and the criminal court is the appropriate body to confine somebody's freedom in order to prevent proportionally that continuing. It's not for us, I would suggest, to seek to prevent Mr. Luani from working, from taking alcohol, although he's chosen not to, from being in a management position, for any of those roles. That would be something which the criminal court would struggle to do, and it didn't do in this case. It's not for us to seek to do it through exercise of powers under the Licensing Act. What I would suggest is appropriate is for you to have confidence that Mr. Luani isn't a proxy, or rather Mrs. Luani isn't a proxy for Mr. Luani in this case, because it's conceded and accepted that Mr. Luani's conviction properly precludes him from holding a personal licence or acting as the DPS. He's never been the applicant, so we're clear. So, Chair, that's the position so far as this application is concerned. May I just check with Mrs. Luani whether there's anything else that she will want to add at this point?
Yeah, I'm happy for you to. Mrs. Luani, if you would like to come online, please.
Yes.
If you'd like to
Hello.
make a final statement, and then I will get clarification from our lawyer.
Yeah, thank you so much for everything. When I made this application, I made to take the license with all the rules it has. I got all the qualifications needed for that, and I didn't know all those things will be on my face. And about my husband's case, of course, I'm not happy to hear again. When my husband applied last year, I had no idea about nothing, and he, because of his English and everything, he had no idea that he should leave his personal license. We didn't know the rules. It's our mistake, of course. And I applied because we need for the restaurant to go ahead with the restaurant, to forget the past, to have a happy family, to run a family business with all the necessary conditions and requirements. We work hard for it. We are working hard for it. And we hope we can go ahead. Of course, it's up to you, everything. If we grant the license, we want to have the license with the conditions and the rules and to go ahead with that. If not, of course, this is the decision, you know better. We will try our best to everything. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much, Ms. Luani. Final thing before we go into private deliberation. Is there anyone who would like any points of clarification from the lawyer? Our lawyer, please, Richard.
Chair, all I'll say is that the decision of the committee will be relayed to the applicant within 5 working days. I don't know if Mr. Jones has any questions of me.
Mr. Jones?
No, I don't have any questions, Mr. Price. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. The only thing that does occur to me, I'm sorry, this is another bite of the cherry. The issue about dancing arose a little, didn't it, during Ms. Dewhurst's representations. If there were any concern on the subcommittee's part in relation to dancing, I'm sure that Ms. Luani would be happy to increase condition 9 to 70% or to have a no dancing condition if that were a concern.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jones. Right. This committee will now go into private deliberation. Richard will explain to you, or sorry, Liz will explain to you the next process. Liz?
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to echo what you've just been saying, that I've now advised that the subcommittee are about to retire to deliberate the item in private. So I'd like to thank everybody for their attendance today, and we will be asking the applicant, their representative, licensing officers and Mrs. Dewhurst to leave the meeting at this point. Thank you for your attendance.
And
thank you all.
Thank you. And Matthew, can you end the live stream when they've gone, please?
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. I'm going to.
Thank you, Kirsty.
Thank you. I'll let you know, Chair, once we have ended the live stream recording.